Hello to all my internet wrestling fans out there, both in physical and digital space, and welcome to another long form edition of Beep Talk, where me and my host Minnie are going to dissect this week's NXT episode. And boy, howdy, was this actually a lot of fun to review. So, we're going to be covering this week's episode of NXT for June 20th, 2023, where it happens to be week one of NXT Gold Rush. So there's 2 weeks TV specials for the next 2 weeks, and we're going to be covering night one today. So normally I'm the only one who covers NXT here at the Bi-Conics, but this week I have Minnie who's going to help co-host with me.
I'm
And
here so I don't get fined.
yes, and he doesn't get suspended for not being on time with me to do the Raw review, but you know what? It happens anyways. So, without further ado, let's just jump into it. So, as mentioned, we're going to be covering week one of NXT Gold Rush, where every single championship over the next 2 weeks is going to be on the line. And boy, did we ever have the championships being half of them being defended tonight and the other half next week. So, let's just jump straight into it, Minnie. So, we begin night one, or night one, week one, whatever you want to call it, of Gold Rush. We opened up with an NXT North American Championship match between champion Wesley, challenger Tyler Bate, with Mustafa Ali as guest referee. So, I know you normally don't watch NXT on a regular basis, but what did you think of this opener match?
That was a banger. Wesley, great wrestler. Tyler Bates, another great wrestler. Had a little bit of story in there with Mustafa Ali, like purposely counting slow or counting fast, or like at one point towards the end of the match, he came in and picked up Wesley when he was on the ground, smacked him in the face, told his ass, get his ass in the ring. Picked up Tyler Bates, did the same thing, said put on a great match. Then match ended, and they're both looking at each other like, what the hell just happened?
Honestly, this had a lot of interesting story beats to it. So, obviously, the last couple of weeks with Mustafa Ali arriving in NXT, all three of these men have just come off of beating the Schism last week on NXT. Now we got this one-on-one match between Wes and Tyler, with Ali being a weird when it comes to the refereeing that he's doing. Now, I think the reason I don't think the story is far from over. I think these three we're gonna run it back again, but we're gonna add Mustafa Ali to the mix. I think we're getting a triple threat at the Great American Bash at NXT's next PLE event at the end of July. So I'm hoping that's what it is, but I agree with you. This was a strong start, and you can never go wrong with Wesley or Tyler Bate in the ring, but when you combine them together, it is magic. I think Ali's gonna go heel at some point, and I'm happy that Ali is in NXT because we actually get to see him wrestle. And this is what I've been wanting to see for the longest time. So I'm glad that he's in NXT, and hopefully it just continues as this storyline develops. So next, we quickly get a backstage segment. First, we get a video package from Gigi Dolan about how art inspires her and how she's not limited to the confines of what art should be considered, and she's going to use that energy in her wrestling. Where then we see Kiana James being interviewed backstage, where she criticizes Gigi for being reckless and not focusing on her career, which is setting up for this feud that we're going to see in a match next week for week two of Gold Rush. And then let's talk about it, because next up we had the Chase U pep rally, where they're hyping up Thea Hale, who is going to be challenging Tiffany Stratton next week at Gold Rush Week 2 for the NXT Women's Championship. Minnie, I'm gonna
Thea
have.
Hale's a
Yeah, go
Thea
ahead.
Hale's adorable.
It's,
Well, is she a little puppy?
so me and Minnie here had a back and forth text conversation as NXT was going on, just with the commentary, and I was dying of laughter because Minnie explained it perfectly. Thea Hale is gimmick right now is the embodiment of an excited puppy. She's just running around. She is being crazy. She is very energetic. And then, of
But
course,
her,
yeah, go ahead.
what is it? What was her, whoever she's facing? Dan Brooke? No, it's the other girl.
Tiffany, Tiffany
Tiffany
Stratton.
Stratton came out. and was like, "You're not gonna do anything. You're like this little 19-year-old just graduated high school." And he just looks at her, jumps at her, puts her in a Kimura. Oh, she says, "You're not gonna tap me out." He went, "Watch me." Put her in a Kimura, and that was it.
Yeah. The only thing I will critique is I feel like the segment went on a little too long. I feel like it could have been like a couple minutes shorter, and I don't think everyone needed to speak. Thea is obviously the central focus here since she is the challenger, and it makes sense for Duke to speak since Andre Chase is currently out at the moment. Still don't know if he's because he's out on injury or what, but and then Charlie Dempsey and Drew Gulak really didn't need to be there because they're like the awkward couple that is attached to Chase University. It's really weird. But honestly, I really enjoyed this segment for simply for the fact that it sets up for what we're getting next week between Tiffany and Thea. And the surprise submission move definitely helps show off that Thea is not to be underestimated. She's not going to win next week, but I think it's going to be great. I'm still shocked at the fact that this girl is 19 years old. Thea is 19
She's adorable.
and she is going to be challenging for the NXT Women's Division, which I think is a big compliment because Shawn Michaels and the rest of the crew in NXT see something in Thea. To give her a chance to go after the NXT Women's Championship is going to be great. I love Tiffany right now as a heel. I love her mean girl aesthetic. It is hilarious. I think she's great. I Tiffany is also a star, so I don't think we're going to be disappointed next week for this championship match. Then, after we get a segment that includes the Schism and the Dynamite continuing to talk about each other, so it appears that this feud is not going to be over anytime soon. The next match we get is a number one contenders triple threat match where we have Josh Briggs and Brooks Jensen versus Hank Walker and Tank Ledger versus Idris Enofe and Malik Blade, where the winner is going to go on next week to face the Gallus Boys for the NXT Tag Team Championship. Minnie, what did you think about this chaotic match?
Match was the whole head was so entertaining. Also, that was a tall motherfucker.
Honestly, yeah.
That
There's
match was really
yeah.
entertaining. That was a really entertaining match. I didn't expect those two to win. Who won? I was hoping for the two full-fed motherfuckers wearing jeans and boots. That was a fun match.
I always love a good triple threat, and when you have tag teams in triple threats, it tends to get chaotic. I tend to love the chaotic nature. Honestly, I did think our corn-fed boys of Briggs and Jensen were going to pick up the victory to face Gallus again. I was not expecting Idris and Malik to pick up the win. I'm excited because they've been continuing to showcase that they're a good tag team and they're great. They're not I don't think they're gonna beat Gallus, but I think it should be an entertaining match next week. But I'm interested because I think Gallus's next opponents actually got shown to us because as soon as this number one contender triple threat happened, we get a little quick backstage segment with the Gallus boys watching on television. And who should approach them but Los Lotharios, which is Berto Carrillo and Angel Garza. So they're at NXT now, and they basically tell Gallus that, they could have been the ones that they're facing if they were in that triple threat, and they know that they would have won that triple threat. And Gallus just dismisses them a little bit, which I love because it's just hinting at the fact that we're probably going to get a longer feud between Gallus and Los Lotharios. And I'm very interested to see how this escalates into a full blown feud. I think Los Lotharios and
Fuck
Gallus are
was
going
that, Craig? Huh?
to.
Fucking leaving and entering my thing, some bitches, little
Hey,
motherfuckers. Sorry,
sorry, we're talking to the Craig bots. Apparently, they're on the fritz.
we can just edit that out.
Or maybe we keep it in. It's
That's true because it's funny.
because it's hilarious. So after that little segment, we get another segment. So, okay, I want to make a quick confession, right? I've been slowly becoming a bigger and bigger fan of Eddie Thorpe. I don't understand why they had him on the DJ turntables for no reason because it's not really part of his gimmick, but I'm cool with that. Eddie Thorpe is on the DJ turntables and Damon Kemp comes up. So last week, Eddie and Damon confronted each other, and Eddie basically told Damon, "It's like, look, I will face you anytime, anywhere. I'm not afraid of you. I'll even let you pick the stipulation." So then we fast forward to this week, where Damon informs Eddie that he has thought about it, and that in 2 weeks' time, that him and Eddie are going to face off in a Raw Underground match, which I raised an eyebrow when that was said. I was like, "Oh no, we're going back to Raw Underground." I was like, "What is about to go down?" And so, preceding that, then we jump into the next backstage segment where Little Miss Roxanne Perez goes ham on Blair Davenport and attacks her, which is continuing the storyline of these two building up their feud. So, for many and the listening audience, if you don't know anything, Roxanne Perez, aka Roxy from Ring of Honor, who is the youngest Ring of Honor Women's Champion in history. And then you have Blair Davenport, which is aka Mrs. Will Ospreay. If you didn't know, that is Will Ospreay's girl. I am excited for this match whenever we get it because those two can go. Those two are excellent. It's going to be hard hitting, it's going to be violent, and I'm really excited for that. This next one was a little bit weird because next we had Dana versus Cora Jade. Before we get into the details of the match, I'm gonna put Minnie on blast here. So Minnie, tell me about your feelings about Cora Jade.
I don't want to because she's dating Braun Breaker, and I don't want to get broken in half.
He'll just do it anyways.
Cora Jade is awesome, and she did a great job with being just like this. I am going to be this queen bitch heel, especially when Dean Rourke was going away on the stretcher, and she just sat there and continued to talk shit. Then it ended in a ref stoppage because she put her in a single leg Boston Crab with the pert knee, and she didn't tap. And the ref's like, "Yeah, no, fuck this." And the end of the match, and Cora Jade was like, "Ha ha," and I was like, "She could do that to me."
I love to see it. I had to rewatch this match because at first I thought I was like, "Oh damn, did Dana actually get hurt?" And then when I watched it again, I was like, "No, I don't think she actually did, but I can never be sure." So I just hope Dana's not really injured because that would suck.
She's not. So you can see in the match when she got up on the ring apron, she was doing everything just fine. I think she was even forget to sell the fact that her knee hurt. And sometimes I think she's okay. I think it's kayfabe.
I hope so too. I'm pretty sure you're right, but if not, we wish nothing but the best. Speedy recovery, Dana. And if she is okay, I'm actually interested to see this feud to continue out a little bit longer. All right. So next was interesting, to say the least. So we get a backstage segment where Seth is talking to Nathan Frazier, who I totally forgot that Seth trained the kid a little bit. And they were talking about being champions because Seth is the world heavyweight champion. Nathan Frazier is the Heritage Cup champion. And then as Nathan Frazier leaves, who comes walking in the room but NXT champion Carmelo Hayes and his homie Trick Williams. And both those two and Seth exchange words back and forth about why they're the champ, they're the best at what they do. And I was surprised that Rollins gave Carmelo's credit, be like, "Hey man, it's like you're holding it down here, you're doing an awesome job, and you deserve that championship." I was like, "Damn, that is respect right there. That is amazing." Which kind of leads into later in the night. I'll talk about it where Carmelo and Baron go back and forth on the mic a little bit, which I thought was pretty good. Okay, so I want to preface this next segment by saying that I don't have anything against Von Wagner. I just don't find his style of wrestling appealing, nor I don't think NXT is doing him any favors because literally Homeboy has been pushed as his monster heel, but it's not working out. And so now I think they're trying to push him as a face of some sort because this next segment, and in the world of professional wrestling, it's always going to be a big hit or miss if you use wrestlers' actual lives when you do these types of promos. Von Wagner is sitting down with Robert Stone, and Von Wagner explains, what happened to him when he was a young kid, how he had this condition where his skull had already fused at like 14 months old, and that he needed to have surgery in order for it to fit as the brain continues to develop. And like we got to see pictures of the actual surgery, and Vaughn being in there. And I'm just like, damn it, I think NXT is making me kind of want to root for him. You can't be mad at somebody who has gone through that. And that was the same thing that I thought when Roman came back. When Roman left because he had to go through chemo again because leukemia came back. It's like, damn, you can't hate Roman Reigns because he's about to go through chemo again. I don't know, Minnie. That's my thoughts and feelings in terms of like when promotions let wrestlers or have wrestlers use real life things that happen to them as part of storylines. What are your feelings on those types of things?
It can be either really bad or really good. Some really bad ones is when they're making Dean Ambrose use Roman's leukemia in a negative way during his feud with Seth Rollins. It can be used really well, i.e., Matt Hardy versus Edge when Lita cheated on Matt Hardy with Edge. That was a phenomenal storyline. So it depends on how you do it.
Honestly, I'm interested to see where this goes with Von Wagner and Robert Stone. If I'm slowly becoming a supporter of Von Wagner, but more so in the sense is like, damn, he went through some kind of traumatic stuff as a child. Can't really hate that against it. I just hope that NXT and Shawn Michaels and all of them treat it with proper care because I can also see where it can go really wrong and it can sour on the fans and more importantly, it can sour on the wrestlers themselves. Then the next two things I'll blur together because it was a backstage segment and then we basically had an in-ring promo off. I guess Gable Stevenson finally made his WWE debut on television because Eddie is trying to figure out who he is going to get to train for this upcoming Raw Underground match against Damon Kemp and who should come up but real Olympic gold medalist in wrestling. Gable Stevenson offers to help Eddie train for the match and Eddie accepts. And I'm like, okay, so after being drafted like what 2 years ago in the like draft 2 years ago and not hearing a single thing about Gable Stevenson and he just shows up on NXT TV, I'm like, okay. I don't know how to feel, but all right then. And then we get Carmelo and Baron going back and forth on the mic about how they are going to walk out of Gold Rush next week with that NXT championship. I honestly thought this was a pretty good promo off. Each both of them like digging deep cuts. Carmelo with the at 26, I became NXT champion. At 26, Baron, you were getting cut from the Arizona card. And I was just like, damn, because if we all remember, Baron Corbin was a former football player, but he did get cut from the Cardinals. And I'm just like, damn. And Baron's just, bro, I'm going to beat your ass. I'm going to take that title and I'm going to call it a day. So I'm actually excited. I do wish that they changed Baron Corbin's theme song. I'm tired of his stupid theme song. Bad. Hate it so much.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So, backstage, we get an official match for next week where Nathan agrees to fight Dragon Lee for the Heritage Cup. So, we're getting Nathan Frazier versus Dragon Lee for the Heritage Cup next week. So, that's going to be a lot of fun. Then we get a segment in which the Gallus boys are leaving Performance Center. They're heading to the parking lot. Our Joe Coffey and Wolfgang get in a car. And then Joe Coffey is trying to get in a car where Lorenzo Stacks comes out, attacks Joe Coffey, throws him in the trunk, and then proceeds to drive off with him. I'm telling you, man, this NXT parking lot is like the most dangerous place in America right now. That's the running gag with NXT right now because the NXT parking lot is where everything happens. And I'm just like, it's the most dangerous thing. You had Nikita Lyons was attacked in the parking lot. Sol Ruco was attacked in the parking lot. Wendy Chu was attacked in the parking lot. You Pretty Deadly got kidnapped into a car by Tony D'Angelo. Joe Coffey got thrown in the trunk. I'm just like, the NXT parking lot is the most dangerous place in America right now, apparently. So if y'all are in the parking lot of NXT, watch out.
Especially if you're God, what's their tag team called?
Which one?
Lorenzo Stacks.
Yeah.
His
The,
tag team.
the family. Him and
The family is in the arena.
you better watch out. Him and Tony D'Angelo currently is in jail right now. Which, by the way, I'm gonna talk about that real quick. I unapologetically love NXT because of how silly these storylines are. We have like Pretty Deadly got murdered on my television screen when they got thrown into the ocean. Tony D'Angelo is in jail because someone snitched him out. You have Wendy Chu, who is currently out on injury, but her whole gimmick right now is she's like a sleepy, like wrestler who wrestles in a onesie and slippers is fucking phenomenal. I love that.
It
And
makes these gimmicks work too.
yeah, that's the thing. They're stupid and silly, but I'm like, these work in NXT, but somehow, but I'm like, they won't translate to main roster, but they work here for some reason.
Because we expect that from NXT. We don't expect that from main roster.
That's very true. But also on main roster, it's like you have somebody packaged and ready to go, and they main roster usually manages to find a way to fuck it up, i.e.,
Yeah.
Karrion Cross's debut.
The same roster decided their storyline was, let's kill Vince.
Lord help us. That was a time and a half.
But we
So,
don't talk about that storyline because it ended really bad.
oh, for sure. It definitely ended bad. So the semi-main event, we saw Lash Legend and Jakari Jackson taking on Ulysses Leon and Valentina Feroz. This was a quick women's match.
That boy got his hand destroyed.
Yeah, I'm just like, oof, oh boy. And I guess now we have a name for the faction that includes Oro Mensa, Jakari, Lash, and Noam Dar. They are now known as Metaphor, but 4 is Four. We'll work on the naming conventions NXT, but I guess they're a faction now. And honestly, this match was all right. Jakari and Lash end up winning. This was a short match. I do think that both of those, I think all the women involved are great, but they do definitely need to work on their ring skills. Especially,
Yeah.
yep, especially Lash. I love you, Lash, but that kick is so dangerous and you still don't know how to do it properly. But it is what it is. All right. Main event time for the World Heavyweight Championship. You have Seth Rollins taking on Mr. Braun Breaker, apparently. I was upset because I was like, this match was actually very good, and I didn't know what to expect.
Ron has such a cool entrance.
That this heel Braun entrance is what's giving it to me right now. This whole match was fucking phenomenal. Minnie, I'm gonna start with you. What were your thoughts and what were some of your favorite spots in this main event?
I personally feel they should have let Braun Breaker get more offense in. He didn't really do anything towards till the back end of the match. Because Braun is really tough. He was able to hold his own against Seth though. Like the match looked like it should be like this looked like it should be a pay-per-view match. It was like you can throw this on Money in the Bank. You can post that. I would even see this as a SummerSlam match. It was that good of a match. It was great. Braun is ready for the main roster. I'm just scared that he will go to the main roster and get absolutely destroyed because he's a Steiner. Seth, of course, was Seth, but it wasn't like Seth doing all the work to make this match look really good. Braun was holding his own, so the match itself was phenomenal. Seth was doing his Seth thing. They didn't really push too much the abdomen. That wasn't really a big story thing that they pushed really with it. Braun wasn't super targeting it. Seth wasn't selling that his abdomen really hurt super bad. Overall, definitely probably the best match between even like this and Raw. I was like, this was good. It was a great match.
I definitely agree. I think this match was this was a good competitive match. I do agree, Braun, I wish he got a little more offense in, but it makes a lot of sense. Seth does retain his title after not one, but two curb stomps because the first one didn't keep Braun down. And so Seth had to resort to doing a second curb stomp in order to keep him down. I do appreciate the fact that the more Seth Rollins matches we watch, like, I love that the added fact is, like, he has to do multiple stomps in order for him to keep his opponent down, especially strong opponents. Like at Backlash, he had to do 3 to keep Omos down, and he had to jump off the top rope for that last stomp in order to win. And here he had to keep Braun Breaker down. He had to give 2 curb stomps in order to get Braun to stay down and win the match. This match was phenomenal. I knew they were going to put on a good match. I was highly entertained, and I honestly think this is probably Braun's strongest match since being in NXT. I do wonder what happened next for him because he lost to Carmelo at Battleground last month, and now he just lost to Seth. I honestly think he's ready for the main roster, but I also agree with you, Minnie. I'm afraid that he's going to get buried or he's going to get not a great treatment due to the fact that he is related to the Steiners. And if anybody knows anything about Vince and the Steiners, they don't like each other.
I'm not sure how he feels about Rick. I know he doesn't like Scott.
That's very
That's
true.
What should I look it up?
Yeah. Fact check. So Minnie's going to do that while I continue to talk. And then proceeding after the match, the we continue the storyline between Seth and Finn because after the match, Finn Balor comes out and puts another beat down on Seth Rollins. And as he's continuing to lay out Seth, Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams, they come out for the save, make Finn Balor back off a little bit, and we end Gold Rush Week 1 with that image of Finn Balor out on the outside with Trick and Seth and Carmelo standing in the ring tall by the end of it. So, my final thoughts before I throw it back to Minnie real quick for fact checker. Overall, I thought week 1, night 1, whatever you want to call it, of Go Rush was very solid. Again, I unapologetically like NXT. I do question booking decisions sometimes, but when it comes to the TV specials and the pay-per-views for NXT, they always end up delivering. And I thought this was a fun, entertaining, and pretty strong card overall when it comes to the weekly TV shows. My final rating for this, I give it a solid 3 out of 5. Everything was pretty decent. There were a couple of moments where I do wish things went differently or was given more time. And of the talent do need to work on their craft a little bit. But that's what NXT is all about because these are young kids learning the ropes and becoming future stars for when they get onto the main roster. Minnie, what are your final thoughts and what do you give NXT's rating this week?
So first thing is didn't really everything I'm finding with the Steiner thing is how it's about Scott. What I'm reading is Vince actually has no hard feelings towards Scott Steiner. It's all Scott Steiner that's being the defiant little I fuck you Vince. Vince, I don't care. It was actually surprising that Braun Breaker, because they wanted to call him like Rex Steiner, but when they turned that down, which kind of surprised everybody because Breaker wants to do his own thing and have his own shtick. NXT Gold Rush Week 1. Yeah, 3 out of 5. I enjoyed it. It was fun. Some people definitely need to put their work in. Some of these gimmicks are gimmicky. Promo skills definitely need to be worked on. Team skills, but that's what NXT's for. Like I said, it's used to for people to get those skills to be worked on. Of course, the opening match and the ending match were phenomenal. Anything with Wesley in it, I'm down for because after watching him live for the 5-man stand and deliver, huge Wesley fan after that. I wish I would have saw Ilya Dragunov, but I think he's next week. Is he more wrestling?
I don't know. I don't think so because the last we saw Ilya was last week where him and Baron Corbin faced off and the winner became the number one contender for Carmelo Hayes.
I
So
want to see more Ilya. I think he's actually probably my behind Braun Breaker. I really like Braun. My second favorite wrestler on NXT is Ilya Dragunov. He's awesome. Yeah, overall, I 3 out of 5 stars. It was a great. It was a good for a weekly event. I thought it was really good.
definitely. And of course, that is going to take us to the end of this week's NXT review. Next week, it will just be me again by myself for NXT, and I will be covering week 2 of NXT Gold Rush, where we have the NXT Tag Team Championship match between Gallus and Idris Enofe and Malik Blade. And we will also see champion Tiffany Stratton defending her NXT Women's Championship against challenger Thea Hale. And I and then we'll probably get more championship matches. We have a Heritage Cup championship match between Nathan Frazier and Dragon Lee. Lord, I'm excited. There's gonna be high flying luchador shit. I'm gonna send it to Adolfo and be like, you need to watch this match for luchador shit.
All the luchador shit.
That's the easiest way to make Adolfo squee like a little girl is to get him send him luchador stuff, which is amazing. But that is going to conclude this week's episode of NXT. If you want more of a quick version of the recap, you can go over to our social medias to see our Beat the Clock, where me and Minnie attempt to recap this week's NXT in under 5 minutes. Make sure to also check out our other reviews that we have because we pretty much cover every single wrestling show that is out there right now, both in long form and the Beat the Clock short form, as well as our Hot Tag series, where our host Adolfo goes through the wrestling news over the last couple of days and breaks everything down in about 2 to 3 minutes so you get your quick fix and stay up to date on what is happening in the wrestling world. But that is going to be it for this week's NXT review. We will see you next week for week 2 of Gold Rush.